so long ago. But to me, it seems like days ago that the tragedy of my existence became reality. How naive of me to believe that immortality would be a gift. I awoke to the last human-made sound I would ever hear. I looked around the bunker and noticed no one was moving. It took me a few seconds to realize that they were all dead. I ran outside the bunker while a horrible thought began to take shape. Once outside, the only sound was that of a brutal, toxic wind hammering abandoned cars left on the empty streets. I wandered around Aurelia Antica for many hours, hoping to find someone else. Someone like me. Every lonely block confirmed what I feared to be true. The apocalypse had actually happened. Life on Earth no longer existed. And I, Gilgamesh, is all that remains. While my mind continued to contemplate my new reality, I ascended the steps leading to the Sistine Chapel. Listening to the screaming silence of the chapel, old memories began to return. Over 5,000 years ago, I was the proud king and high priest of Uruk. My subjects followed and idolized my very existence and decisions. I enjoyed everything a mortal man could desire. Nothing was kept or forbidden. But all that was not enough. I was aging and there was no medicine, knowledge, or kingdom that could stop the inevitable fate that plagues all men. But I was not like all men. Often, under the cloak of night, I would climb the steps of the temple. I would spend many hours looking up at the stars, wondering about the gods. One of the many nights, a bright comet cut through the cover of night. It exploded against the desert sand in the outskirts of Uruk. An inexpressible excitement took a hold of all my senses. I commanded my servants to ready my chariot and headed for the desert. Once I reached what I had thought was a comet, I realized how wrong I had been. It was a sphere, half buried in the sand. It had a bright light emanating from inside. Maybe it was excitement. Maybe it was euphoria. But there was something or someone calling me to enter. The things I saw could not be described or understood. I continued to explore, and that was when I saw it for the first time. He had the shape of a man, but unlike any man I had ever seen. His legs were broken, twisted out of shape, and he appeared to be experiencing an insufferable amount of pain. To my surprise, he looked up, pointed at me, and began to speak. He made deep, unearthly sounds I had never heard before, but I could still understand. His name was Utnapishtim. He knew my name and my thoughts. His mission was to save his kind by transporting and reviving them in a red planet in our solar system. But during the trip, his vessel was hit by meteorites, forcing him to land. He was hurt and needed help to continue his mission. A madness took over me and I asked, What will you give me in exchange for saving your life?" I did not realize it then, but the words Utnapishtim would utter next would change my life forever and alter the course of human history. He said, "I will make you immortal." For many seasons, I used my medicinal knowledge to care for the strange visitor while neglecting all other duties as ruler of Ulrich. Following Utnapishtim's direction, I gained knowledge on the foods that would aid in his recovery. Time had passed, without much thought to the repercussions of my earlier decision. But one day my help as caretaker was no longer needed. Utnapishtim began to show signs of improvement. That was the day Utnapishtim announced he was ready to finish his mission and resume his voyage to the Red Planet. Unprompted, he also told me he was ready to repay his debt to me.
"Are you ready for immortality?"
he asked while pointing to a chamber in the vessel I had never seen before. Thoughts swirled in my mind, but without much hesitation I answered, "Yes." Not many memories remain from the events that followed. Vague images of a hand reaching for a lever, and then pain. My mind was dragged into a never-ending hole, spiraling out of control. Then a bright light burned every part of my body. Silence and darkness followed. Did the being trick me? The word "awake" filled the chamber at once. Slowly coming to my senses, I realized that it was Utnapishtim speaking my name. I opened and closed my eyes repeatedly until I saw him staring intently at me. Strangely, he avoided my gaze. And with a voice filled with seriousness, he said,
"My debt to you has been fulfilled. Your life will never be the same again."
I listened but could not help to doubt. Utnapishtim's eyes carried a look of guilt and concern, but I did not care enough to ask or think about the reason. I was a god among men. My extended absence in Ulrich had caused a rift amongst my people. Treachery and gold filled the hearts and hands of men who profited from my absence. The sweet taste of power is not easily returned and is never forgotten. Fearful of my return, a plan of betrayal was born. My brother in arms, my confidant, Humbaba, was chosen to carry out my murder. Utnapishtim was eager to leave. He spoke with concern, repeatedly asking me to come with him. I refused, never considering that my decision to stay could be incorrect. Utnapishtim headed to the entrance of his vessel. He turned around to give one last inviting look before vanishing inside the sphere. Lost in thought, I looked up at the sphere while it noisily ascended into the sky to disappear into space. I've made many wrong decisions during my lifetime, but staying on this planet to expand my kingdom would forever haunt me. My horses had perished, so the trek back to Ulrich would take 2 days. The desert sun burned my skin while the icy night threatened to break my spirit. My body screamed for water, but my thirst for power was stronger. Despite all the pain, I continued. On the second morning, in the distance, I saw my beloved kingdom. I was not aware, but for seasons now, Humbaba, now an emissary of death, had been awaiting my return. Humbaba spotted me at a distance, while I slowly approached Ulrich. With a deadly aim pointed at me, Humbaba's marksmanship was unquestionable that icy morning. He effortlessly let his arrow fly. Moments before my death, I heard a buzz get louder, and in that instance, the arrow parted my chest and penetrated my heart. I had died, or so I had thought for the first time. I pulled the arrow out and a burning pain spread through my chest. Enraged, I looked up and saw Humbaba. I ran faster than ever before, charging in the traitor's direction. Humbaba looked confused and clumsily moved for another arrow. I reached him before he could do anything to defend himself. With ravenous fury, I threw him down on the sand and began to stab his chest and face with his own arrow. Standing over Humbaba's lifeless corpse, the fragility of human life became self-evident. I no longer belonged to the realm of men. I was alive, more alive than ever before. My immortality was real. A primal, defiant scream escaped my body. The birth of my new self sank in. The transformation was complete. Utnapishtim had not lied. He had created a new Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh, the Immortal. Reflecting back, I understood that the look on Utnapishtim's face 5 millennia ago was one of pity. While I believed immortality to be a gift, he saw it for what it really was. Chains that would eternally bind my soul to this human prison that is my body. Without other life on the planet, immortality lacked all meaning. In a desperate attempt to find a way out of this curse, I decided to seek out Utnapishtim and end it all. There was only one place where I could find a way out of planet Earth. NASA. The full-scale war had created extremely unstable weather patterns, and storms were frequent during my voyage to America. However, this storm appeared to be worse than the other ones. As I tried to maintain my course, a gigantic wave smashed my sailboat from the side. My body was violently thrown into the water, and I began to sink into the depths of the dark ocean. Suddenly, sounds were muffled and all turned black. Life was so much simpler a week ago. I led a monotonous life working as a reporter for a French newspaper. This profession allowed me the ability to travel to different places and quickly know about what was happening in the world. One day, through our American affiliates, I learned that human ingenuity had finally reached its pinnacle. The American government released the names of the crew selected for the first manned voyage to Mars. The rocket ship would be launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida, on November 12, 1984. Mars, the place Utnapishtim referred to as the Red Planet, his home. This knowledge infused life into my sad existence. I now had hope to see Utnapishtim again and beg him to take my immortality away. At the same time, international tensions were rising, and attempts by the United Nations to reach a compromise were failing. A third global conflict appeared to be imminent. On Saturday, November 10, 1984, conflict escalated to a point of no return. facts were not clear at first, but early reports suggested that China was the first to strike by launching a missile attack against the United States and Russia. The American and Russian allies retaliated, causing an unprecedented chain reaction among all other nations, which began to fear for their own existence and unleashed a nuclear assault on each other unlike any ever seen before. Mid-morning that day, a cobalt superbomb called Mayomata was launched, which ended all terrestrial life but left everything else intact. Within minutes, all of human life was erased from the face of the planet. When I finally reached the beaches of Miami, I found an empty, desolate graveyard with a murderous, howling wind. But that was 3 centuries ago. Now the climate had begun to stabilize, and a beautiful breeze blows across the planet for no one else but me. For 296 years, I have been walking the empty halls of NASA, fixing things and learning the archaic yet complex computer and navigational systems of the spaceship that was once headed for Mars. Years, centuries. These words hold no meaning without life around me. Loneliness can get unbearable sometimes, but it subsides when I remind myself of my mission. Reaching Utnapishtim has become my driving obsession, and reaching him my sole purpose, so I can stop living. With a strong will and eternal life, 296 years have been enough to learn astrophysics, and now I feel my goal to be within reach. Understanding of the spaceship and most of its navigational systems are all in place and all that is needed. The survival or sustenance of my body is not in question. One day, not too long from now, I will know enough to leave this empty place and head toward the Red Planet. Only then will the legend of Gilgamesh the Immortal end.